listeners, and welcome to another very special Who Corner to Corner podcast. My name is Paul, and as ever, I'm joined by my fabulous friend, Mr. Jeff. Say hi, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
But not only do we have Jeff in our studio today, we are also delighted to be joined by none other than Swarm himself, Mr. Sam Spruell! Hello, Sam.
Hello. I'm sorry, I feel like I should be speaking in the Swarm voice, but I mean, it's near as damn it to mine. So.
It's coming through already. I'm feeling the chills already creeping up my spine. I mean, it was so identifiably recognisable. It's really chilling. So yes.
Oh, good. Good. Well, it wasn't that far from my voice, but I think we were kind of keen to use whatever you could when you're covered in so much prosthetics. You know, you start really thinking about what you can do with your voice, because you can do less with your face. In fact, you know, even though the makeup was very mobile and moved with our faces a lot. We had teeth, we had eyes, so we kind of concentrated on the voice quite a lot.
Yeah, the teeth were quite extraordinary, weren't they? Did you have to wear a thing for those, something in your face for that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have your teeth scanned. This is what they do now. They stick almost a camera in your mouth and scan your teeth line and your gums and everything, all the makeup of your mouth, and then they make a mold from that. It kind of all scans into a computer and they make a mold from that, and then they just turn up on set and you put them in and off you go.
Well, that must have been comfortable.
I mean, really actually uncomfortable. This is the funniest thing, because with this character, brilliant as he was, as much as I liked him, he wore Cuban heels, so it was really hard to walk. I had big gold teeth on, so it was quite hard to talk. I had purple eye contacts in, so it was quite hard to see. And the entire kind of purple head went over my ears, so I couldn't hear very well as well. So all the kind of senses you needed for acting most, which is about listening, seeing, being able to walk, all the rest of it, they were all taken away. So
it's like almost sensory
it was
deprivation then in that case.
It was, and sometimes you just think, am I talking too loudly? Am I talking too quietly? Am I looking at the right person? I can't quite see them, you know. But that was just the name of the game on that job.
That's what it is. Yeah. So, can you tell us, Sam, how? Because we'll talk a lot about Swarm in just a moment, but I'm quite interested to know how you got started in acting. How did you discover your love of acting, and what route did you take to get there? So back to the very beginning.
Yeah, right back to the very beginning. Well, my mum's an actress, so I grew up around it. Yeah. And she's primarily a theatre actress, although she has done Doctor Who. And she's done lots of different telly, you know, all the usuals, Holby, Casualty, Coronation Street. But she did, about a few years ago, she did Doctor Who when Peter Capaldi was the Doctor, and I think had a lovely time, and I think went to Tenerife with it as well. So she got a kind of nice trip to the sun as well with it. Not. Nice. You know, because I was a bit miffed because of COVID, Doctor Who was really going nowhere for this last season. So it was really strict. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, so it was with my mum really. I grew up around it, and then I wanted to do a whole load of other things like all kids do. Primarily, I wanted to play basketball professionally, but I realised that kind of 15, you have that realisation that all the other people are being picked and you're not, and you're also not going to grow to 6'6". So that was out, and then I joined the National Youth Theatre, and that was really where I thought, I could do this. You know, I could take this quite seriously, and which I do. I take my acting very seriously, and I really kind of learned. I don't know, a kind of methodology around that time to approach character and approach my work in general. So, the National Youth Theatre was a huge thing in my life, really. And not only kind of was a coming of age for me in terms of just being a teenager, but also really, set me on the road to kind of thinking that I could do acting for a living.
And what was your first big break then? How did you transition into the big time?
I mean, the big time is hilarious when you put it like that. But if we are going to call it the big
The
time,
big time.
I suppose, yes, exactly. I don't feel I've ever hit the big time, but maybe one day. But I was, I finished university and I managed through the National Youth Theatre to get an agent. And my agent, I went up for a couple of jobs. I did a short film with a director called Miguel Sapotnik, who's now the kind of lead
Yeah.
director on the new Game of Thrones. And just when the people were starting out, and I managed to get involved in a few things. But then I went and my agent said, no, you got a meeting with Mary Selway, who is a really famous casting director, brilliant, brilliant casting director who sadly died
Yeah.
over 10 years ago now. But she said, you've got a meeting with Mary Selway and a director called Catherine Bigelow, who I hadn't heard of.
Oh,
But
right. Yeah.
yeah, who I hadn't heard of them, but who's obviously directed The Hurt Locker, which I did a small part in as well. But she was directing a film called K-19, The Widowmaker, and I went and met her and the producers in a really posh hotel, and I think I remember having the meeting when I had just had my wisdom teeth out as well. So my jaw was massive. I'd had awful wisdom teeth, but somehow I looked Russian enough for them to
Yeah.
cast me on this Russian sub. And it was 6 months filming alongside, firstly Harrison Ford and Liam Neeson, and
Yeah.
then other really great actors, Peter Sarsgaard. There's loads of great British actors in that as well, whose names have
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
escaped me, but really, really kind of really good people. And it was 6 months of filming, which felt very glamorous, but also felt like a film school, and because I really learned a lot on set there. And then,
Yeah, that's brilliant.
and that was when I thought, I can do this. I can act in front of camera, and I was expecting to do lots of stage work, but really it shaped that first year kind of shaped
Yeah.
how I thought about myself as an actor, and I went off and I've done quite a lot of film and telly really since then.
Yeah, I was going to ask because I met you when you were doing Doubt at the Chichester Festival Theatre a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
Is that the first
yeah.
bit of theatre that you've done in a while? I wanted to ask kind of how much you do on stage, or whether it's more
Yeah, I
film,
don't do that. Was
like
the
you were
first bit
saying.
of theatre that was the first bit of theatre I'd done in 5 years, and I
Oh, wow.
tend not
Yeah.
to do a lot of theatre, but I really love doing it, and I also feel like you have to go back to it to keep yourself. I don't know, just to keep a kind of muscularity about
Yeah.
your acting. God, that sounds pretentious, but it's
Keep it
actually,
keep
I
it
do
nimble.
believe in that. Yeah, exactly. And it's a kind of different concentration. You have to concentrate
Yeah.
for a lot longer.
Yeah,
On the whole filming, the takes are maximum 3 or 4 minutes. But,
Yeah.
to concentrate for an hour and a half, really, when you're on stage is really fantastic to do, and to practice that really. And I love working down in Chichester when I saw you. I love doing that play Doubt with Monica Dolan. I just it was a really fantastic experience. But back to filming now. I think I'll leave theatre alone for a bit.
We should probably tell that story, actually, shouldn't we? Because how you two kind of came together, and the reason we managed to put this podcast together was purely on a chance encounter through
it
through Jeff's
was.
day job, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So my friend Freddie got booked to film at the Chichester Theatre, and we do quite a bit of live streaming, kind of live editing and things. So he asked me to get involved, and I was doing the live edit and things. And I didn't really know what we were doing. Just you turn up and you do. I didn't know what the show was or anything. We got there, and then I realised, you were in it, Sam. And I said to the guys, "Oh, this is going to be good." Sam, I said he was in Doctor Who and he was absolutely brilliant. And unfortunately, my camera friends are, they're a bit heathens and they don't watch Doctor Who. So I had to show them some pictures.
I mean, shame on. I can't believe you're working with them.
Well, do you know what?
I'd ask questions there, Jeff. To be honest with you, mate.
Why are you guys here? Why am I hiring you? And I showed them some pictures of Swarm, and they said, "Well, he didn't look anything like that." I said, "Well, of course not."
Thank goodness.
And then I said, I'd really like to go and say hello and just tell you how great you were and things." And plucked up the courage, and then we had a little chat. And just before, you were getting ready for the evening show, weren't you? And then so that's kind of how it came about. So yeah, it's total chance, a bit like when we spoke to Bhavnisha Palmer recently, who plays Yaz's sister in the show, and I completely by chance bumped into her in Soho when I was filming some stuff with presenters a couple of years ago, and then we've sort of been in touch through LinkedIn. So yeah, it's funny, where what work, where it can lead and who you can meet and things. So yeah, but
you've got to take advantage of it.
Yeah,
you've got to make contacts, and it's nice. It's nice to be able to do this podcast. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and we're really grateful. And even if nothing came of it, just to have been able to say hi and say how great you were, and the show would have been enough. So brilliant. Let's talk a bit about Swarm before we go on to some other stuff. So, how did the role come your way?
Well, I'll be totally honest. It was offered firstly to a brilliant actor called Paul Ritter, who has since died, and he's in Friday Night Dinners. He plays Martin, the dad, in that. He was an amazing stage actor, and kind of he did, one of my acting heroes, actually.
Yeah. He did Chernobyl,
he did
on TV.
Yes,
Chernobyl, which was really dramatic.
Yeah, and he's done tons of stuff. Anyway, I knew him a bit, and I really, really liked his work. My agent called and said, "Listen, Doctor Who have been on. They've offered you this part of Swarm. It was going to be for Paul Ritter, but he's not feeling well, and he's actually quite ill." Yeah. And I didn't know, none of us knew that Paul was going to pass away.
He kept it very quiet,
but
didn't he?
I think so, yeah. But anyway, I said to my agent almost immediately, "Well, if it's good enough for Paul, I'll do it." and really, so that's all I knew of it. And then I spoke to Chris Chibnall, and he explained the character, and he gave me some. I didn't really know what the look of the character was going to be, but I did. Right. He gave me some really interesting character notes, which are almost too grown up to reveal. I'm afraid it's kind of less family friendly character notes. But they were really just kind of like we kind of identified some kind of I guess some global villains that he thought most represented Swarm, and then we had chatted around those characters, and that was really interesting. And then before I knew it, I was up in fittings, getting kind of prosthetics on and seeing, if it would all glue on all right, and they were still kind of shaping the kind of look of the character. And then I was in a read through, so it was a very kind of quick turnaround, and I knew Jodie, so that was really nice. And it was a very kind of and I actually had also worked with Rashenda, who plays Azure, my sister, in it. And so it was really nice to kind of be working with those two, and
that's great, and
getting on with it, And also, it's just a kind of Doctor Who. It represents so many things for so many people. But as an actor, it's a lot of kind of good, clean fun on the face of it. There's other stuff, there's all kinds of stuff that is talked about and goes into it. But as I say, I was dressed as a matador with a big blue skull stuck to my head.
Very demonic.
So
matador,
it
has to be said.
Yes, exactly. But it really gives you a chance to kind of push the boundaries of character, and I really enjoyed that.
So we've got a question from Keone on Gallifrey Base, who said, so what informed your acting choices in playing him? And Cynical Archivist, who's on Twitter, says, were there any other characters that influenced your performance?
I mean, I would hope that all the characters I came into contact with influenced my performance, because that hopefully means that I'm doing my job.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to be acting and reacting is the kind of basis of it, but you just want to be present and you want to be alive and reacting off people who are doing stuff in the scene. So all those characters, we are shaped by whoever we come into contact with. So that's the same for Swarm. But I think in terms of the first question, it was really Chris Chibnall I think it's now who's he being replaced by again?
It's Russell Davies now, isn't it?
Russell T Davies, so Russell T Davies. But Chris Chibnall at that time was the showrunner, and so it's his creation. I put flesh on the bones, but he writes it. He has something in his mind that he knows he wants. So it all came from Chris, really. And then, I think about stuff. I have kind of flashes of imagination and creativity, which I might put into the character, but it was mainly Chris.
It's a brilliant character, and sorry, Paul. Genuinely, like I said to you, Sam, when we met, the best villain in Who in just years, and we put out a tweet saying we were chatting soon, and if anyone had any questions, and so many people just said, just Swarm, just awesome, and they absolutely love the.
Can I just say, actually, just picking up on that point that you raised, Jeff, and also Sam as well, because you kind of mentioned that you had a conversation with Chris about different figures who may exist or who have existed in history, some really terrible people who we're not going to mention, and one thing I have noticed in Chris's writing is that he is extremely good at picking out the real, the really horrific sides, the darker sides of of personalities, and some of his more monstrous demonic creations have been very recognisably human, even though they are dressed up in a lot of prosthetics. And for me personally, that was one of the things that really kind of resonated with Swarm. No matter how grotesque he looked, how alien he looked, he very much felt like he could be somebody that I know or could know, and thankfully I don't know anybody like Swarm, but there was a reality to it. Do you know what I mean? Like a grounded earthiness despite the alien quality.
Well, I think that's also just trying to act well, which is so. Of course, you have all these character traits. You have the size of his personality, the size of his power, his universal power to bend time and what have you. But in the end, the scenes are just him talking to someone else and vice versa, so you have to kind of keep it real. And then there are times where you need to kind of talk, or you need to grandstand, and then you can up the size of your character. But especially with the Doctor, a lot of the stuff is very intimate. So you just play the intimacy. You don't need to play anything else,
Well, but that's I felt very much with Chris's villains that they're quite brutal and horrible and vicious without being kind of physical. There's no kind of knives or fighting or anything like that.
There's a lot of psychological manipulation going on, isn't there? Which I love.
Yeah.
And again, you can
and maybe he's interested in that. But I've been playing a lot of these characters for quite some time now. I'd hope that when I kind of create as I try and create anyway. I don't always succeed, but I try and create a kind of rich psychological makeup for whoever I'm playing, whether they be lovers or I don't get those parts though, or villains or whoever, you're trying to make these people human, even if, or certainly relatable, in a human way, even if they've got a big purple head and wearing a matador outfit and got huge gold teeth. You're still doing the same thing. You need people to invest in these people, and they won't. People are really quick to kind of shut down if they even get a whiff of something that isn't believable, or an emotion that doesn't ring true. Or that you're not reacting with the other characters, say not reacting to Jodie's doctor, it's I think that can you've just got to keep it, you've got to keep it real. That's what I try and do with all my acting. I say, I quite often fail, but sometimes succeed.
No, I don't think
at all.
That was I hooked you in. No, sorry.
You did, and we fell for it, but we're happy.
No, I loved it. It was a brilliant. I need to see you guys every day. Keep my confidence up.
Ego endorsement by Paul and Jeff.
Yeah. Exactly.
Contacts our agent now.
But you do, it is good to hear, and I do think that the way the character has been so well received in the fandom says a huge amount for your work on it and your performance. So I've got a quick question here from Safe Space Who on Twitter, who says, how long did the process take to get in costume and get all your makeup on?
Well, the costume was quick. It was thermals because Cardiff Studios Cardiff BBC Studios are bloody freezing. Yeah. And then it was a kind of suit, trousers, matador shirt, jacket, and whatever they wanted. But that was pretty quick. And then, before that happened, it was the application of the big purple skull head, and that was a bit of a nightmare in the sense that if you were filming at 8, you needed to be starting that process at 3:30 in the morning. Oh, wow. So we needed 4.5 hours. But whenever I complained, I then had to remind myself that the makeup artists who were applying it had to get there an hour before. Yeah, so if I was starting at 3:30, they were always starting at 2:30. And suddenly 3:30 seems much better than 2:30. So I tried to keep it stumm as much as I could, but it was a long process. But actually, it kind of always went. We were kind of often Rashenda playing Azure. She was sat next to me being made up as well. So there was lots of chat, and we were on our phones, and we were reading books. All the like. So it just passes. And the makeup artists rehearsing lines a bit, but I think on the whole, we kind of knew our lines by that stage. And we kind of think it was also, I think we were just too tired. We just kind of let them get on with it and just chat rubbish until we had to concentrate. But it was Ellie and Ashley were applying the prosthetics, and they were really fantastic people. They were so young and so talented and so kind of wise and interesting to talk to, and both from a kind of Hull and Grimsby. And in Grimsby, what I didn't know is a really amazing prosthetics training college there, and so they had both been to the same college, and then were working at Doctor Who.
Grimsby. Who would ever have thought it?
Well, that's
I know.
Yeah,
amazing.
Apparently, it's famous.
I've never heard of that. Yeah,
we should have to get those guys on.
Check it out. I could be wrong, but I'm almost sure I'm not. So check it out.
We should chat to them.
Put a link to it.
when we spoke to Pete Levy the other week, and we talked about you, and he said you were a real trooper. You were in before everyone else and leaving after everyone else with the makeup, and really kind of committed to it all, which was great. Paul, if you got a question, I'll let you take the reins.
I do,
for
because I just want to dialing back a little bit to the personality of the character, and kind of finding the performance in the prosthetics and the writing and everything else. And I just kind of wanted to say, or ask, I suppose. Well, I want to say that there were some wonderful, almost. They seem to me to be choreographed movements, but I wondered how much of them were choreographed. For example, there's a lot of scenes where there's you and Rashenda and is it Jono playing passenger, isn't it? The three of you just dominating a space and walking almost in unison with such power and glamour and kind of borderline campness almost, and yet dominating it. And
Definitely.
I just wondered, did you kind of rehearse that ahead? Did it just kind of happen on set, or how did that come
about?
about?
I'd just like to add
about. Yeah.
I was going to say, going on from that, there's a bit when you're in the Temple of Atropos and you're standing against a pillar, and you've got the foot on the floor. And you're like that, and it was so cool. It was such a good pose.
Well, I think I'll talk about us as a group first, and I think we did kind of just fall into a kind of rhythm of movement, and I think both me and Rashenda playing Azure, it's so funny, that's like a phrase, Rashenda playing Azure. She and I kind of discussed how we wanted it to be. We wanted it to be camp. We wanted it to be glamorous because our costumes were so extraordinary. Our kind of makeup, she had crystals coming out of her head.
That crack in her head is fantastic.
Yeah, it was amazing. So we kind of, that dictated how we were going to be and move, and I was wearing Cuban heels. You can only move a certain way in Cuban heels, And then,
I've never tried them. I'm going to have to get them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it will make you camper and more glamorous instantly.
Brilliant. My kids have loved that.
But I think for myself also, I was wearing a kind of Matador's outfit. I wanted to have that movement. I wanted to have that kind of a bit of Latin flair, and so that was how it kind of materialized, how I moved, how I stood. And also sometimes you've just got to think, is this too much? And they can always either edit it out, or the director can come along and say, I think you're a bit too camp now, or
cut it out, Sam. We don't want that. Cut it out.
Exactly. But on the whole, they didn't, and that was quite good. I mean, there was a few bits, we did. I remember one bit. Me and Rashenda, I said, I don't know whether you remember when Trump was in power and he did his State of the Union. Yes, no, of course. Sorry, I don't. Of course, we remember when Trump was in power, but I don't know whether you remember this specific thing. Was his State of the Union address, and he finished it, and then Nancy Pelosi behind him. Did this kind of famous applause, which was like that. It was kind of full of irony, and it was an applause that showed her disgust. Yes, it did. And so I said to Rashenda one day, I said, we've got to, at this bit, I think we should start the scene off doing a Nancy Pelosi applause. And she agreed to it. And I thought it was great, but it didn't make the edit. But we try all those kind of things. So there's two of us where the camera panned round. There's two of us both going like that.
Fantastic. I'd love to see that.
No, but it never made it, unfortunately.
It must be in the outtake somewhere.
Exactly.
So I'd like to talk in a moment about working with Jodie and everyone, but we've got a question here from Dana Kay on Twitter. She says, was Azure really supposed to be Swarm's biological sister, or was that term used to mean a more general sort of friendly relationship? So is that something that you talked about with Chris and Rashenda, and kind of influence things?
And we didn't talk about it that much. I assumed that she was my biological sister. But also, there's a certain amount of theatrical license with that storyline. And also we would kind of, sometimes we would hold hands and be a bit creepy brother and sister as well. So which I don't know how, again, you see, I was always trying to up the creep factor as well. So I don't know how many of those hand holding bits that they kept in, but certainly we did it, because we just wanted it to be. I kept on thinking about also those twins from what's the Stanley Kubrick film?
Oh, The Shining.
The Shining, yeah. Those two twins. I think they're holding hands at the end of that corridor. So just trying to kind of do stuff like that, which would kind of up the level of creepiness and all that.
Yeah. I've got a little story about the Shining twins. We were in a comic shop a little while ago, and my youngest twin, she's like 20 minutes younger, she said, oh Daddy, I found a toy. It's twins. Come and look at this. And she picked up this packet of 2 figures. It was the twins from The Shining. And I was like, yeah, you're not getting that. Put that
No, I love that, though. That's so great. Oh, no, you should have bought them for her, really. I'm just saying, because it sounds like she's got quite good taste. But if she likes that film, certainly when she sees it later in life. But I can't remember what the question was.
No, I think that I always felt that Swarm and Azure were they were brother and sister, but it was,
they're brother and sister.
It was weird, and
it was certainly weird.
How close they were,
And some things, were certainly in Chris Chibnall's head, and we just did it, and if he wanted something, well, then you just have to kind of. He knew the story and what was about to happen better than anyone. Yes, so it was all in Chris's head, and I kind of feel. I kind of feel, sometimes you just do stuff because he might know that related to this bit of the story that was coming 2 episodes later and all the rest of it, And the kind of the relationship with those two, whether they were brother or sister or not, was kind of part of his kind of imagination.
His grand design.
His grand plan.
Exactly, that's it. That's a better phrase,
I kind of thought, because it's like... Swarm and Azure are kind of anthropomorphized agents of some kind of cosmic force, isn't it? They represent time, I think, in the narrative, which is quite a high concept kind of thing, and yet they're given human form. So they're created from something. They don't necessarily always have a human body, but Swarm has
like
spent
the Doctor
eons in this. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
like that.
The
They're eternal.
It's
It's a really great high concept stuff, and I just honestly I loved it. Like so many other fans, it's such a unique villain to have in the show.
Well, you see, do you think he dies at the end of it? Do you think Swarm dies?
I think
at the end
not.
Of it?
One of my questions was,
isn't it?
are we going to see you again in the show, or would you do Big Finish? But no, I don't think he died. No, I think he wanted, like Paul said, an ascension to something else, another form perhaps, or a different plane. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, exactly that, Jeff. It's I was watching it again quite recently, and you get that scene in the end, isn't it, where so you get like old Father Time, who looks again like Swarm, sort of dishing out some kind of justice for failure, and Swarm himself seems kind of almost enraptured to receive the punishment, like as if there's a test, and whether Swarm has failed or passed the test, it doesn't matter. It's getting to that point in the test and moving on, and Azure looks at it as ascension, and she's delighted to be part of it. So again, it's like, for me, it's like we've got unknowable forces at work. We have good and evil. We have time and space. Those things that I think Swarm says it at one point, Doctor, we do the dance again, as if to say that it's like a cosmic game that just goes on and on throughout eternity. I love all that kind of stuff. Might not be quite what was intended, but SOR and my brain took it.
But apparently someone told me also that no one really dies on Doctor Who. That's why you've had recurring villains over decades.
This is true. the Master has died
so
countless times and always comes back.
Well, it's
exactly.
science fiction.
So maybe there's hope for Swarm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was it like working with Jodie and Mandip and John and the rest of the main cast?
Yeah, really great. Everyone was really good. I think Jodie, one of her great strengths is that she really knew how to lead from the front, and that was certainly in terms of the actors, but possibly even more so in terms of the rest of the crew, of which there are many more. So I think she was just really good at keeping everyone buoyant over a long period, a long shoot.
How long was the shoot?
Well, months. I mean, I can't remember. It just went on months and months, and that's the same for every. And it was probably, for every season it's months. I think it's 9 months of the year or something, which is a really, really long time for a crew to be together. And I think she would organise competitions. She'd have people's birthdays were all celebrated. She would have people kind of dressing up in that person's birthday's clothes, so everyone was looking like that person for a day. It was like she was kind of had limitless energy in terms of kind of just keeping people going and entertained and having fun. And I thought that was really a kind of a really good thing to have done. And Mandip the same. She's just a gorgeous personality, Mandip. Very talented, and John then is just kind of was bringing up the rear, kind of. He hasn't done loads of acting, so I think he was always interested to see other people, what they were doing and how they go about their work. And then also he's just really nice chap, who's got some really good stories, is very funny, and so it was very easy with the actors. And I had to work most closely with Rashenda, who I love. And Rashenda Sandel, who plays Azure, she's a brilliant kind of force of nature personality. And also working loads. She's in all kinds of stuff, doing all kinds of interesting things. And I first met her briefly on a Steve McQueen directed Small Axe for the BBC, and we were in Mangrove. So it was a joy from that perspective, and loads of the crew as well. Again, like especially our makeup, our prosthetics people, they were just incredible. Their spirit and skill just keep us going.
Yeah, that's so good to hear. That's what everyone that we've spoken to has said, isn't it, Paul? And
we're family atmosphere.
Yeah, we're both, as many others are, huge fans of this era, and it's Jodie's time is ending soon, which is is heartbreaking.
Have they picked a new Doctor?
No, well, there's lots of rumours, isn't there? The latest was Hugh Grant over the weekend.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Hugh Grant, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be quite a Doctor. That would be an acerbic, cynical, but nonetheless charming Doctor, I'd say.
Yeah. So no, I think the announcement of who's next must be imminent.
I hope they hang on to it for as long as possible. Honestly, it'd be so good if we didn't know who the new Doctor was going to be until they actually appeared on screen. It's probably unlikely to happen in this day and age, but it would be fabulous if they did. If we just didn't know. Imagine a surprise.
I know, that would be mega.
Everything.
Yeah,
it really would.
That would be so great.
I can't imagine they'd get away with it, but you never know. Chris kept huge amount of secrets on his era of the show, so maybe that will carry on. So let's we might come back to some stuff about Swarm, but you did a Comic-Con recently, I think, didn't you, Sam, and met some fans? Was that your first one, and how was that?
That was the first time I'd done something like that, and it was really great, actually. I really, because I found fans of Doctor Who such an interesting bunch. I feel like it's created a space, a kind of almost a space for people to inhabit who sometimes aren't as successful in more conventional spaces, you know. And there is a kind of, and I mean this in a really, I just found people's ideas, their creativity, their strength of personality, able to shine around the rest of the Whovians. And I thought it was just great, you know. And also the really interesting takes on the show, stuff that I had no idea existed about the kind of discussions that were happening around it, discussions of not just of you know, storyline and concepts and what people you know, represented in terms of the threat to the Doctor and to the world as we know it, but also about conversations about sexuality as well, you know, all kinds of stuff that was happening that I thought was pretty progressive, actually. And so I thought that's an interesting space, a kind of sci-fi space supporting really kind of progressive notions of gender and sexuality, and you know, and allowing people's creativity to kind of have no bounds, whether they're a woman or a man, gay or straight or whatever. And I just thought it was it felt like a really healthy group of people to be associated with. So I loved it.
Brilliant. So you mentioned Liam Neeson earlier. So tell us about working on Taken 3 and working with him, and does doing a film like that and like Snow White and the Huntsman, what sort of effect does that have on your career?
I don't know whether it has much of an effect. I mean, I think on the whole, my acting life has been kind of successful in the sense that I work, you know, and that's felt unbelievably lucky to be able to kind of support a family and pay my mortgage on acting. Because in my 20s, when I didn't work much, I used to have all kinds of jobs. And from bar work to painter decorating, working in galleries, I did lots of legal work. You know, I delivered meat. You know, I did
Delivered
so
meat.
many different jobs. Yeah, I did so many different jobs, and so to just earn a living through acting feels really lucky. But you get big jobs sometimes, and they do push things along, but rarely do they kind of break it wide open. So you're just going, you've got choice. You know, the majority of us were just doing stuff and hoping that it cements us as working actors. You know, cements our place of actors that are good and who can be trusted to turn up and do the job. And, you know, having learnt their lines and all the rest of it. But you know, you do. That's not to say I don't hope that there is a job that kind of really cracks it open. You know, like like that does a, you know, like Olivia Colman doing The Favourite, and suddenly there are so many parts on offer to her, you know, that she can really kind of pick a path of doing great job to great job to great job, you know. That's what I'm hoping to do as well. It doesn't have to be on that scale, but to even get close to that would be lovely. And that's what Taken 3 kind of, it just ups your profile a little bit, but really Taken 3 is a funny film, you know. I mean, it's like, you know, it's a silly film. And I mean, I had such a good time making it, but it's not the kind of art house stuff that I really like doing. That's kind of more my thing. But you know, I was walking around in my pants firing a machine gun. What's not to like?
I mean,
what else do you need in life?
That's the dream.
That's one of the bucket list, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's interesting what you say there, Sam, because you know, I run a video company, and you know, and I've worked with actors and a lot of bands as well. I used to do a lot of music video work, and I think to be able to make a career out of your chosen profession, where you can support a family and pay the mortgage and feed yourself, etc., that's kind of, you know, to an extent, that's the dream, you know. And if you get to go and play at Wembley with your band, brilliant. Or if you get to direct for TV, awesome. But you know, for me, you know, I love doing what I do, and making that work and have been for almost 20 years now. And every day you wake up and you don't know what phone call's going to come in or what email. And like you were saying, something might happen that changes everything. And if it does, fantastic. If it doesn't, I'm happy. And so I think, for anyone pursuing similar paths, to be able to make it work successfully as a career, that's kind of the end goal.
But then other stuff comes. Absolutely. But then other stuff turns up, doesn't it? You start having kids. You've got a partner who's also whose job needs to be kind of considered. It's not just you anymore. So it's actually hard to maintain ambition. But actually, I still am ambitious. But part of that ambition is just really doing good work, and working with good writers. And of course, you'll have fun on Doctor Who or Taken 3 or whatever, and that's a real bonus. But there's work I love, which I want to be associated with, like, I don't know, like some filmmakers like Michael Haneke, who are making kind of very austere but brilliant work, I think, that I also want to be part of as well.
So out of all of your roles, what's the one that's challenged you most and has been most rewarding?
Big question.
That is a big question, because I always kind of forget what I've done. But I suppose... I'm going back to theatre. So I played Iago at the Globe.
Oh, yes.
In a production of Othello. And that was, it's the biggest part in Shakespeare. And I'd only done one other Shakespeare, which was Othello again, but I played another part. I played Roderigo to Andy Serkis's Iago. But this time I was playing Iago myself, and huge part, and it was really challenging, and just not only to learn all the lines, but also to play Shakespeare was a challenge for me. And he's also a kind of crazy character, narcissist, psychopath. Liar, child, there's all these kind of So
bit like Swarm, you might say, in some ways.
A bit, but not as Machiavellian. I played it like he was more of a child. He just started a ball rolling and then couldn't stop it. And so there was that. For the theatre, certainly was an unbelievable challenge. I think I played a really great part in a BBC show that came out last year called The North Water, and that was, we filmed in the Arctic, and so the physical challenge of that was really difficult, very, very cold. The ice sheets that we were filming on, moving all the time, wildlife, polar bears, walruses, just it was all there, which made for an unbelievably exciting shoot, but it was also really difficult. And the part itself also, he was a very troubled soul, and really kind of struggled to do the right thing by anyone, including himself. And that was also a big challenge, which I loved, actually, because most of my scenes I was working opposite Colin Farrell, and if anyone gets a chance to work with him, do, because it was a complete dream.
Brilliant.
It's quite varied, isn't it, Yorkie? You've done a lot of very different things, and there's a lot of variety.
I know. Well, no one knows what I've been in, but they all know that they know my face. And that's quite funny.
And the voice as well. The voice is still giving me chills, Sam.
Well, quite often people, I'll meet them and they go, "Oh, we've met before," and I go, "No, we haven't." And but
you have heard me in your dreams.
But I popped up in lots of different things, So
So there's a question from Lydia Heather Alice on Twitter here. So this goes back to something you mentioned earlier about like playing the role of a lover or something. So what sort of role would you love to do that you haven't yet?
Oh, it's such. I mean, I don't have any specific roles, but I get interested in stuff. So I was really pleased to do Doubts because I really wanted to play someone religious, and obviously I was playing the priest in that show. I quite like to stick with religion. I think it's also I suppose. I was talking to Monica Dolan when I was working with her. It was really interesting because we were discussing, we often play baddies or kind of wrong uns, but it's also I want to play people who are different to me. So not massively different necessarily, but I just want to play people who, for instance, I'm left wing, but I quite like to play people who are right wing. I'm a Remainer. I quite like to play more people who are into Brexit, so because part of acting is really kind of getting to know how we tick, what humanity
understanding
is,
other people,
and yes, exactly, all that, and playing other characters really does kind of engender that empathy, and so to play people different to me is great because I get to understand more about who we are as people.
Yeah, the world. Yeah. So, Paul, you might have a couple of questions as well. I've got two that I'd like to ask you. So one is from our friend Cowbear Creates on Twitter. That's an artist named Millie Mackenzie. She makes these clay models of Doctor Who characters.
She's done a fabulous Swarm and Azure, didn't she?
Her Swarm is brilliant. I'll send a picture really to your agent. He can pass
Please
it
do.
on
That'd be amazing.
She says, what went through your head when you first saw yourself in prosthetics, and is Swarm in love with the Doctor?
I can say all this. I can answer all that. So it was amazing when I saw it but most of all, it was just experimenting with what movement the prosthetics would allow. And when I saw that I could, I could do, just looking in the mirror, certain angles made the skull, the whole thing look more frightening, or I could do stuff with my mouth, put my head at a certain angle, and I go, oh, that's good. So that was really enjoyable, just playing around with what was on offer, essentially. And was I in love with the Doctor? I certainly played it that there was deep attraction.
Yeah.
I
but
thought,
not in a conventional sense, perhaps.
Yeah.
Who knows? I just thought, I thought there was definitely... for me, definitely not for Jodie, I'm sure, but for me, a deep sexual attraction.
Yeah, and a fascination with her.
Exactly.
There is that, because Swarm goes out of his way to upset her, to throw things, to challenge her, and
exactly.
really sort of disrupt
it's kind of
what she thinks.
In a conventional sense, it's kind of aggressive flirting, isn't it?
There you go, exactly. That's it. So maybe that was a subtitle instead of Flux. Originally, it was in Chris's mind. It was like Doctor Who aggressive flirting. I'll scrub that one. Let's call Flux instead.
It will be a chapter in his book. How's that?
Working title. Yeah. Oh, that's fabulous. So I mean, the only question I've got really is really just to ask, what's next on the horizon for you, Sam?
I'm about to fly to Patagonia, actually, to do a film with a Chilean director, and it's a very low budget, but we're going to be filming there, which will be really exciting. And I'm playing a kind of Heart of Darkness kind of character, a colonel who's a British colonel at the turn of the 20th century, who's found his way there and isn't going back, and the rules have changed in his mind.
The horror.
And,
the horror.
Exactly. He's quite a crazy guy, and it's really about the land clearing in South America for sheep rearing, and so lots of natives were cleared off their land there, and to allow for kind of colonial powers to raise sheep on those lands. And then after that, I'm doing something called Gold, which is a BBC series.
You almost sang that, I think.
Yes, no, I know. I don't. You always want to. That shows your age there. But But
not as young as I look.
Yeah, which I don't know how much I can speak about, so I'm not going to. But it is going to be an exciting series, I think, and it's set in the 80s.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
right.
perfect. I'm going to looking forward to that one.
That sounds good.
Definitely look at that. Fantastic.
Good.
I've got one more question that came from someone called The Banshee on Gallifrey Base, and they just asked Blur or Oasis.
I didn't think you were going to ask.
Oh my God. I think it's essentially got to be Oasis.
Really?
I know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but I think they made the better songs.
Yeah, I like both, to be honest. I couldn't choose between either. Blur.
Well, I mean, it was an or situation. So listen,
this is true.
I've stepped up, given my answer.
I applaud you for that, Sam. You braved that one out. Yeah. Well done, mate. Yeah. I'm too weak for that.
Noel's Oasis songs more than Liam's for me.
Okay, fair dues.
Honestly.
Well, Sam, we should probably let you go. As no doubt you've got a busy day, but this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us and on Who Corner to Corner podcast. And to everyone who we had so many questions come in that we could have
millions. We literally really millions, and we had to pick 12 out of that.
Yeah, we could have talked for hours.
It was really good talking to you. It was really good to kind of again feel the enthusiasm of the Who world, you know. So thanks for having me on, and I'll see you soon.
Brilliant.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thank you, Sam. Really appreciate your time. Very best wishes for everything you do next. Take care.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.